Hey, everybody, welcome to the Buck Brief. Joined now by a very special guest, Professor Hadley Arkes, 50 years at Amherst College, tenured professor of political science there, perhaps for some of you, most notably, the early tutor of my political journey 20 years ago. He was my advisor, both for thesis and general academic advisor at Amherst College. He is now the founder and director of the James Wilson Institute, which is doing fantastic work. And Professor Arkes, as I'm fond of telling my audience, any lapses in my political judgment or understanding could be squarely placed at your eminent feet. So this is how
Absolutely. But look, I just read you're the most my favorite student of one of my most favorite places, Regis High School.
Thank you. Thank you. Regis is a great institution, and we're still trying to fight that place from.
But you are one of the two most celebrated figures from Regis High School.
I know. Now. Fauci is the other one. Don't think you're going to surprise me with that one. Your
reputation is more enhanced now.
Yeah, Fauci, I think, is, and I really say this in all honesty, I think that he may be the single most destructive bureaucrat in the history of the United States, and I think he may be personally responsible for, as a function of policy, more suffering, misery, and economic calamity than any other living American today. So that's how I try to line it up. But a graduate of Regis High School.
That's sad. But Talleyrand's remark when he heard that Marie Antoinette had been executed, he said, "Well, I'm nothing against her personally, you know." Well, I'm nothing against it personally. He said, "Remember the class of '58, which would have been my year."
Oh wow!
Same
Look
age.
at that. Yeah.
Yes, he played basketball there. But anyway, that's all we are here today.
We are here to figure out how we can save the Republican Party and save a whole lot of lives also in the process. Right. Professor Arkes, in the fight for life.
Right.
Let me give you a premise, and then I want to let you just take it away. Right now, the momentum is the GOP cannot win going into this election on the issue of being pro-life or the fight for life. That is the issue du jour right now in for a lot of people. That is where the political momentum is. What do you say?
I say they have this view. The Republican political class has always been kind of sheepish in talking about this. The genius of the conservative jurisprudence is that we would return the issue to the political arena. They return it to the political arena where the culture had been now stacked against us for 50 years, where the court had been teaching there's something deeply rightful and necessary about abortion. So you're returning it into that kind of culture without doing any teaching. And the critical point is that, no, there's a way of turning the tables on the Democrats and bringing forth, my pitch is the old Born Alive Infants Protection Act. This was brought forth 20 years ago, something I wrote for the debating kit of the first George Bush, to avoid a panic among the Republican Party when the question was when abortion could be returned to the states.
Tell everybody about what the Born Alive Protection Act is.
That was a move to make the first, most modest step on abortion, to see if we could protect simply the child who survived an abortion, because there was one federal court in 1977 dealing with a child who survived an abortion for 21 days, undergone a surgery, died. The question was there an obligation to preserve the life of that child? And the answer tendered by Judge Hainsworth was no, that is not a child marked for the protection of the law. That's a fetus marked for an abortion. In other words, the right to an abortion was the right to a dead fetus. So I had a draft for President Bush saying, why don't we start there? Because the other side says they're against infanticide, which means they're willing to protect the child at some point. So let's invite them to tell us when. And if nothing else is forthcoming, what about birth? Can we protect the child born alive? Well, we started that. We brought that forth in 2000. It was passed in 2002. And to say that even that child marked for an abortion is a person protected under the law. But for the sake of averting a veto from Bill Clinton at the time, the drafters of the bill dropped the penalties. But then in 2013, we had this abattoir run by Dr. Gosnell in Philadelphia. We were snipping the necks of babies who survived the abortion. And one of the women who was helping us at the time, Jill Stanek, a nurse in Illinois, was dealing with a live birth abortion where the child was delivered live and put in a refuse room to die. And as she got on the air, nurses were calling in all over the country saying, but we've been doing those for years in our hospital. More of this was going on than we thought. Well, when the killing started again in 2013, we thought, this was the moment to bring forth a move to restore those penalties that had been stripped away. When we first enacted the bill, the Democrats were embarrassed to oppose it. So when the Democrats in control of the Senate, Harry Reid brought the bill to the floor of for the vote. And Karl Rove asked me when the president was signing the bill, Karl said, why do you think they let that happen? I said, well, I don't know. What's your surmise? He thought people must have cared about this. Well, I don't know. When the killing started again, 2013, we'd bring it back. But now there was a dramatically altered situation. The Democrats had reluctantly gone along with us in 2002. But now the division between the parties was utterly cohesive. Every Republican voting in this House voted to restore the penalties to the Born Alive Act. And virtually every Democrat voting, that was in September 2015, voted against, except for a handful of pro-life Democrats still there. So that was the September 2015. It was tried again in January 2018 with the Republicans still in control. Same kind of vote, cohesive alignment. And it was tried again in January 2023 when the Republicans came back. And the vote was party line down the way, 220 to 210. There's only one pro-life Democrat, Henry Cuellar, who came over. See, so the point is, for the Democrats right now, the right to abortion does not even end at the point of birth. And the curious point is that this has never been picked up. Even Fox News. I heard Bret Baier doing an interview with Doug Schoen saying, this is the issue, abortion, that can win it for Joe Biden. And what was amazing is that Bret Baier could not turn and say, but don't you think the Democrats have a problem? That they acknowledge no limits to the right to abortion, even when the child comes out alive? Fox News will not cover it. Bret Baier was a participant in 3 presidential debates over 2016, 2016, and then 2020, and other debates among the Republicans. Never raised the issue. So there's some kind of a blockage there. But for Trump, this is tailor-made for him.
Can we, Professor Arkes, can we hold for 1 second? Because I want to bring you back on the specific issue of Trump, but just with a mind to the clock. A word from our sponsor here, the Oxford Gold Group. I keep hearing that people are on the fence about owning gold and silver. And look, I get it, right? This is something you want to do, put a portion of your assets into. You want to diversify. You want to have some precious metals on hand. Because just look at what can happen with the massive changes in inflation, in global economies. You could have a war breakout. And if you look historically, gold and silver have increased in value over time. You can use it as a hedge against inflation. It's a tangible currency in the event of things going really haywire, but also just a store of historical value. That's what gold is. I have gold and silver on hand. I think you should too. Call the Oxford Gold Group. You may qualify for up to $10,000 in free precious metals, depending on your purchase. Call the Oxford Gold Group now. That's who I get my gold and silver from. 833-995-GOLD, 833-995-GOLD. All right, Professor Arkes, so bring us back to the issue.
Wait a minute. I put in my order in for the gold. You are so persuasive.
Thank you, sir. Oh, well,
as ever, you are so persuasive.
If you look at a chart, gold the last 30 years been pretty sound. I know. It turns out
833-955.
You know what people get concerned about, or rather, when they ask me what worries me. True story. Actually, somebody called in once and asked in 2019 what kept me up late at night, and I said it was actually bacteria. I said a mutated bacterial pandemic, something like a bubonic plague, and this is pre-COVID and everything else. But the one that I still, now we've been through that whole nightmare, but the one that I still tell everybody, if you really want to feel bad about the future, just look at the history of fiat currency over time. Look at what ends
Ooh.
up happening over time. It is not a happy story when governments are able to print money, whether you're talking about ancient Rome or various iterations of French regimes, or just go down the list. But Professor Arkes,
Talk,
okay,
talk about anchoring moral truths. You've got one.
yeah,
Okay.
there you go. Hey,
Okay.
someone's got
By
to
the
pay
way,
the bills, Professor.
Listen, I think the good news of the morning was that people are still are getting even more reluctant to buy electric cars. That's very hopeful news for the
Well,
future. Okay.
my favorite story of the last week or the last couple of weeks was the New Republic, which should just be called the New Communist. They have admitted that recycling plastic is a giant waste of time. Finally,
Whoa!
which is a huge benefit, I think to mankind. So, all right, now
Right, okay.
back to the issue at hand. But I know some people. I'm not going to say who. I know some people who maybe can get in Trump's ear on some things, Professor Arkes, and he is our nominee,
Yes.
and he is going to have to address this issue of life. How can he do it? How do we do the two things of maintaining principle, saving lives, but also winning? Because if you lose, then the lunatics are in charge.
Well, no, this is tailor-made for him. And our dear friend Tom Kligenstein is supposed to be interviewing Trump. He's been close to Trump. He'll try to get my piece in his hands. This is tailor-made for Trump because he's come out with a favor of the 16-week bill on abortion, which is good because we can do something at the national level. But the other side will just pound him on the matter of you're doing something to a national vote. What he could do is just turn the tables on him. He doesn't have to be on the defensive. He said, look, you have something to explain. You will not acknowledge a limit to abortion even at the point of birth. We're going to start with that simplest of all bill to put in place that simplest point that even that child marked for an abortion is a human being, a small human being who comes with the protection of the law. Can we, he said, we can bring together people on both sides. Even, he wants to do that. Even people who are pro-choice will accept some restrictions on abortion. He could bring them over. Now, even if the Republicans take control of the Senate, it'll be very hard to get 60 votes to bring that bill on 16 weeks to the floor for the vote. But you will be able to bring that bill on saving life of the child who survives. You will be able to get that get 60 votes to bring that to the floor finally. And once that's in place, of course, the other side will say, well, you want to do anything, other things. See, of course, we're not hiding it from you. We're going to come back and ask you, what's the difference of that same child 5 minutes earlier, 5 weeks, 5 days, 5 months earlier? It's the same child. Now, here's the point. If you don't want to go with us, well, then you don't vote with us. It's our job to persuade you. You have nothing to lose. But we're telling you, once we put in place that point, we've given you something to think about. Look, Justice Alito made the point in that Dobbs decision that if we can protect the child after viability, after the child could survive outside the womb, why can't we protect the same child before viability? It's the same child. It's the same child. So whether we're talking about 15 weeks or 6 weeks, it's the same entity. We're dealing with the same child. Now, if you just plant that first point, that people are clear, whatever this is, no, we don't think that the right to abortion is the right to kill a baby who survives. That's a real human being with a claim to our concern and protection. Just plant that simple point that the media refused to cover and refused to acknowledge.
Oh, I was going to say, I can assume that the response to this, having been in some of these public scuffles, Professor Arkes, now for many years, you know what they will say, and this is a tough one. This is they will deny reality. Yeah. They will say that this does not happen, that there's no need for even what you're talking about because it does not happen. And then if we show them, well, here is a case of it happening, they'll say, well, that was just one case. You know, this is where it becomes impossible. It's like arguing with the mass psychology, and instead of any individual who can take your argument at face value.
But the answer to that is it does happen. We have the case, the evidence about the case of Dr. Gosnell in Philadelphia snipping the necks of those babies. We have Gianna Nesson and the people we've brought forth in the hearings, the women, the people who've survived, the survivors of abortion who are here to tell the story that it happened. And we have the kind of testimonies brought in by Jill Stanek and by nurses throughout the country that, yes, it really is happening. It really is happening. We're not collecting all the evidence on it, but it is happening. And the point is, look, even if we're dealing with only a handful of lives, Buck, this is the argument. Even if we're saving a handful of lives, then we could carve out from that vast volume of 800,000 abortions a year, we can rescue a handful of lives. There's nothing trifling about that, okay?
Yeah, if it saved just one life applies to Democrats in a whole range of endeavors, not this one so much.
Not so much. That's right. That's right.
I also want to ask you, Professor, while we got you, just to weigh in a little bit on the campus issue, but first, and a little bit of Amherst, a place we share in common, and how things turned after we left. We'll do a few minutes on that here when we come back. But first up, I want to tell everybody about Patriot Defender. It is a legal defense membership, and it's something that you just want to have these days. No-cost legal defense to protect your rights, freedoms, reputation, and way of life. Speak up at a school board meeting about vaccine mandates, suffer consequences. Your legal defense is covered. Your right to free speech is denied. You suffer consequences. Legal defense covered. Have to use the Second Amendment to defend yourself. IRS audit assistance. A whole range of things that involve your essential liberties, your constitutionally protected rights. Patriot Defender is there for you. I'm a believer in this kind of defense. I'm a partner in this business and a member. The website is patriotdefender.com. Again, patriotdefender.com. The only membership like it that goes beyond just concealed carry weapon defense. Patriot Defender will cover what others won't and protect you, your family, and your livelihood. Go to patriotdefender.com. Professor Arkes, this is the we go through this exercise sometimes when it comes to the way the media covers Trump with how is it almost becomes metaphysical. They say Trump is Hitler and then he's worse than Hitler. And then we say, well, how can you be worse than Hitler? Where do they go? Where does when they go to 11 on the dial and there is no 12? That's a bit how I felt about the politics that reigned at Amherst 20 years ago. What happened? What happened since?
Oh, it's just been hideous. I remember when 9/11 occurred when you were a student.
Yeah.
Remember, I didn't go to the faculty meeting because I knew what was going on. We're going to have colleagues telling us somehow that thing in 9/11, it was somehow our fault. And I thought it was either you or Ted Hertzberg who got up in the middle of that crowd and said, I can't believe we're hearing this from grown-ups. Yeah. Now, and in the Amherst.
It was feisty little Hertzberg, by the way. Shout out to feisty little Hertzberg.
Okay, it was Ted, wasn't it?
I was there with him. I was sitting with him, and he got up and did it, and then we got out and we left. Yeah.
I thought it was either you or Ted who got that line off. It was great, and then people showed up for Republican meeting. Look, at Amherst, it is inconceivable you could have a meeting for the burning of crosses. If there's anything said, any incident that indicates racial animus, classes are called off. There's a fake cross parade. There's a cross parade at Amherst before you were a student. Classes were called off. And I raised the question at the time, well, what if the ACLU says this is protected speech? Well, it doesn't matter to us. Then it came out that there were black students who burned that cross for the sake of getting something going. People had to change. But the point is, even though Scalia would say that it's right of the First Amendment to burn crosses, I think a serious mistake. It is inconceivable that the burning of crosses would be permitted at Amherst College. So now I raise the question, why would it be legitimate for people to come out in a mass meeting to say that the Jews have to be cleared out of the Palestine? It's not that the Palestinians are being ruled without their consent, because they're being ruled out without their consent, without free elections in Gaza and the Palestinian Authority. It's that Israel is occupied because there are Jews living there. And so what we're telling you is, we think that this savage killing of parents in front of their children, the beheading of babies, we think that is a justified move for the sake of making Palestine Juden free. I don't understand why that would be permitted any more than the burning of crosses on the campus. Now, at another day, we might say, look, even Justice Black, great defender of freedom, did not think it's legitimate to have a mass meeting outside of a courtroom and leave the impression any decision there would be effective. A mass meeting is simply a mass meeting. A college can say, look, a mass meeting is simply a mass meeting. If you have an argument to make, let's get together and have a teach-in, as we used to have teach-ins. Make an argument and confront people on the other side. It's a moment where the colleges and universities are going to have to face up to something and ask themselves, just how serious is it to have a critical portion of the students really making the case for genocide on the campus? It would be inconceivable to be doing that about blacks. So what is getting in the way of their reasoning about this matter?
Professor Arkes, everybody, where can folks go to follow more of the work that you're doing, the James Wilson Institute?
Thanks for that, Buck. It's called the James Wilson Institute, named after one of the premier minds of the founders, James Wilson of Philadelphia, who doesn't remember this first Supreme Court, who doesn't get enough celebration. So you could just dial up me, Hadley Arkes, or the James Wilson Institute, jameswilsoninstitute.org, and you'll be filled in on everything we're doing, everything we're publishing. Or there's my new book, Mere Natural Law. It's like Sam Goldwyn's old line. We said, I don't care if I make a nickel on this movie as long as every man, woman, and the child in the country sees it. Okay, so it's Mere Natural Law, done by Regnery. And the point is, we're talking about nothing theoretical, nothing abstruse. We're talking about those maxims of common sense that ordinary people not only grasp readily, just have to understand, just in getting on with the business of life. That's the pitch of the book.
Professor Hadley Arkes.
I don't see enough. I don't see enough of you. Why don't you get to D.C. or I got to get down there to Miami?
I'll do better than that. Clay and I. We have our own. We have a studio in D.C. We have studios in a lot of places.
Wow.
So we're gonna come. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's kind of a thing. We inherited a lot of studios. So a lot of studio space and stations. So we're very grateful. But we'll come up to D.C. Because we're going to do something in the fall with a whole bunch of members of Congress and with the election coming up. So we'll bring you in studio, Professor Arkes. We'll have you in studio to see everybody this fall in D.C. And certainly let me know.
I don't want to embarrass you. I'm just so proud of you, of what you've been doing.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you.
You've been doing so beautifully, Buck.
Thank you.
You're so fluent and clear, and you're just up on everything.
That's very kind. Yeah, I really appreciate that. If I'm able to help save America, you are the sensei or the shidoshi that taught me my ninja ways. For those who are fans of martial arts films, so there you go. Or the Karate Kid had to learn from somebody. So there you go. You're the guy who taught me wax on, wax off.
Okay.
Mr. Miyagi himself. Mr. Miyagi or Hadley Arkes, same idea. Anyway, Professor Arkes, thank you so much for the kind words. Great to have you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.